You were never taught to think. You were trained to obey. But they made it look noble. They called it respect, humility, maturity. And now, every time you question the rules, something inside you flinches, as if you're doing something wrong. It starts early. You got a gold star for sitting still, a pat on the head for repeating what the teacher said, a smile for being polite, quiet, agreeable. You learn to suppress your instincts in exchange for approval, and over time, you mistook that approval for truth. You thought, if everyone agrees, it must be right. But Nietzsche would laugh, or maybe cry. If you enjoy this type of video, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button, because what you call wisdom may just be well-packaged fear. What you admire in yourself, discipline, patience, kindness, might actually be avoidance. Avoidance of confrontation, of judgment, of being truly seen. And what you call being a good person might just be strategic submission. You adapted to survive, not to lead. Society doesn't reward originality. It rewards compliance that looks smart. People will praise your maturity as long as it makes them comfortable. They love the version of you that's predictable, polite, easy to label, and they call that love support, but it's a leash. Nietzsche didn't write to comfort you. He wrote to rip the floor out from under your feet, to show you how deep your obedience goes. You repeat the teachings of others, call it wisdom, and wonder why your life still feels hollow. So here's the cut. If all your so-called growth still depends on someone else's approval, you're not evolving, you're performing. You're not awake, you're domesticated. Ready or not, it's time to ask, what if everything you admire in yourself is just obedience in disguise? You say you want freedom, but what you really want is safe freedom, the kind with clear instructions, emotional cushions, and a money-back guarantee if it gets too uncomfortable. But Nietzsche doesn't offer that. He doesn't hold your hand. He throws you off the cliff and says, now fly. Because real freedom, the kind that breaks chains, feels like chaos at first. It's not clarity. It's confusion. It's not a straight road. It's standing in a dark forest with no map and no voice telling you what to do next. That's why most people don't want to be free. They want to be led. They want someone to point the way, promise salvation, and give them a purpose to recite like a prayer. So they find a guru, a religion, a system, a brand of truth that makes them feel safe. And they call it meaning. But it's just another leash, this time spiritual, another excuse not to think, not to choose, not to risk being wrong. Nietzsche said, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. But what if you've been borrowing your why from someone else your entire life? That's the real threat of freedom. When no one tells you what to believe, you have to look inward, and most people are terrified of what they'll find. You might realize your job is a cage, your relationship is a performance, your goals aren't even yours, and your entire identity was built to please a world that never cared who you really are. Freedom is not a reward, it's a burden, and a sacred one. It demands responsibility, choice, the risk, and most of all, solitude. So here's the cut. If you still need someone to tell you what's right, you're not free, you're just comfortably imprisoned. You still kneel, not to gods, but to names, titles, experts, influencers. You scroll, you highlight, you repost, like a disciple collecting digital scriptures. But you're not thinking, you're outsourcing your soul. Nietzsche didn't just say God is dead to shock religious people. He said it to blow up the entire idea of external authority, the kind that says, this is right, that is wrong, here's your meaning. Follow the script. The death of God isn't about theology. It's about epistemic collapse. It's the end of default truths, and that terrifies people. Because when the idol falls, so does the scaffolding of your life, your parents' beliefs, your culture's version of success, your self-help guru's 12 rules for living, all of it shattered. And in that silence, something terrifying happens. You have to decide what matters. Not memorize, not repeat, not obey, decide. But decision is dangerous. It means you might be wrong. So you cling to idols that promise certainty. Wake up at 5 a.m. Follow this path to success. Think positive. Don't question, just trust. You know what Nietzsche would say? Burn it all. Because anything sacred that can't be questioned is a prison. And here's the hardest truth. Some of your idols wear your face. That image of the ideal you, always disciplined, spiritual, admired, might be the biggest lie of all. An ego costume stitched from borrowed cloth. You can't lead while you're still worshiping. Not others, not systems, not even yourself. So here's the cut. If you want to start leading, first, you have to kill what's leading you. After the fire, silence. After the ruins, something stirs. Not a guru, not a savior. You. Nietzsche didn't want more rebels. He wanted creators. People who don't just destroy old values, but give birth to new ones. People who don't lead others. They lead themselves so radically that their very existence becomes a new law. And that's where you come in. Because if you've made it this far, through the collapse, the fear, the idol killing, there's only one path left: creation. But not the type they sell in productivity books. Not create your dream life, like a Pinterest board. This is deeper. This is ontological creation, becoming the source of your own values. The Ubermensch isn't a tyrant or a superhero. It's the one who has transcended the morality of the herd, who doesn't ask, is this allowed? Who simply is, and from that fullness, acts. He doesn't react to the world. He emits a world. He doesn't live for applause. He shines like the sun, without needing permission, without asking who deserves the light. This is not a fantasy. It's what happens when you stop waiting to be chosen, when you stop playing the good one, the humble one, the smart one, and you start living from a place so real it scares even you. But be warned, this path has no cheerleaders, there's no roadmap, and no one claps when you build something the world hasn't seen yet. They doubt, they mock, they resist, because your authenticity exposes their compliance. So here's the cut. If you want to lead, you have to create a life no one else can copy. And to do that, you have to risk being completely alone with your truth. You want to lead? Then get ready to be alone. Not lonely, alone. Because true leadership, the kind that starts from within, is born in silence, not in crowds. Most people don't follow because they're weak. They follow because they're afraid of solitude, afraid of the empty space where no one's clapping, no one's validating, and no one's watching. That space, that's where the real work happens. Nietzsche's creator doesn't need permission. He doesn't gather followers. He withdraws into himself. He leads from a furnace the world can't see and doesn't care to understand, and that makes people nervous. Why? Because a person who no longer needs approval is uncontrollable. And if you can't be controlled, you can't be predicted. And if you can't be predicted, you become a threat. Society will tolerate your growth as long as it fits within a template, as long as your success is digestible. But step outside the mold, act from pure instinct, speak something unfiltered, unmarketed, unapproved, you'll hear the silence or the backlash. And that's where most people fold. They go back to the herd, back to the rules, back to being liked. Because being liked is easier than being authentic. But easier is not the path of the one who leads. So here's the truth. You're not failing because you're weak. You're stuck because you're addicted to being understood. But a leader, a real one, walks into the desert alone because he'd rather be true and exiled than accepted and fake. So here's the cut. If you're not ready to be misunderstood, doubted, or even hated, you're not ready to lead. A true leader has one final task: to let go of even that identity. Because if you cling to being the leader, you've just created another mask, and Nietzsche would tear it off your face. The point was never to replace obedience with dominance. The point was to transcend the need to be either. That's why the final stage of real transformation isn't command, it's disappearance, not in defeat, in power. When Zarathustra gives everything, he doesn't ask for a monument. He retreats, silently. Because he knows the sun doesn't shine to be admired. It shines because it cannot help it. And even the sun knows when to set. That's what leadership really is. Not spotlight, not applause, but the courage to burn bright and then walk off stage without needing to be remembered. Let that hit. Because most people lead to be followed. They inspire just enough to be worshipped. They speak truth, but only when it earns them loyalty. That's not freedom. That's a prettier cage. So here's the brutal, beautiful truth. When you stop following, when you start leading yourself, when you live from the overflow, not the obligation, you eventually realize the follower inside you must die. And the leader, he must die too. So what remains? A creator, a presence, a force that doesn't seek applause, doesn't cling to image, doesn't care who sees, because it's too busy becoming. This is the final cut. The world doesn't need more leaders. It needs more people who no longer need to be followed. So, disappear. Not from the world, from your need to be approved by it. Only then, you're free. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.